Great, awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started here in just 20 seconds as I admit a few more folks in. Again, if you're just joining us, find the chat function, and if you'll indicate your first name, the school you're with or company, and also your interest in either automotive or engineering or advanced manufacturing would be awesome. Well, let me go ahead and get started. I'm Rob Atterbury. I'm with ConnectEd. We're the National Center for College and Career, and it's my great pleasure to also introduce to all of you my good friend and colleague and host of the Cloudcast Media's Community Spotlight radio show for the last 13 years, Drew Schlossberg. Drew is going to help moderate this morning, and we'll be interviewing our great industry partner. Drew, you want to say hello?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. You're in for a treat today. We're going to be chatting with Marques McCammon, a true transportation industry leader. He's the president of transportation design for Ricardo North America. I have an opportunity to do a design challenge, ask Marques a whole bunch of questions, and we'll be coming back to you folks next week with that design challenge. But first, Rob, let me turn it back over to you and go over some logistics for what we need to do to make sure this works well.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Drew. Let me just admit somebody. Sorry, I was muted. Hey, our goal for today is to give you an opportunity to meet an industry leader in the automotive engineering innovation space and give you an opportunity to interact, ask some questions, also to participate in a design challenge, as Marques will be providing a design challenge for folks to participate in, hopefully extend your learning and give you an opportunity to maybe score an opportunity or two as a result. So love for you to participate today. This is a great opportunity to do that. Just for the record, we are recording, so if you please keep your microphones and your cameras off, that would be awesome for security purposes. If you have a question, we're going to ask that you chat that question to us. I will give you an opportunity. I'll be watching the chat here, and I'll be given an opportunity to relay that question and actually allow you to maybe ask that question in person. We'll give that a try. So if you ask a question, go ahead and articulate that, and then we'll go ahead and open up your mic. If I can do that real quick, just know that that's a little bit bumpy on my end, but I'll do my best to open up your mic. If I'm not able to do that, or if we're not able to get you on live with Marques, I will be sure and relay that question to Drew and Marques so that we can continue on. So with that said, I'd like to just roll up a clip of video, and let me just make sure it looks like we've got all of our participants in. I'm going to stop my video and stop my microphone, and we'll go ahead and roll a video clip as an intro.
Ricardo globally is a company that's been around for 105 years. In the US, we've been pretty active since the 90s. One of the things that in the US we've really focused on is just really being a service-oriented organization for our customers, whereas Ricardo globally has been at the heart of innovation in transportation for many years. As we look at Ricardo for the future, we're undergoing a transformation where we're focused on looking at the way that our world is changing, the way that we consume energy, the way that we consume water, the way that we interact with our environment, and engineering solutions to help make that transition from today to tomorrow more productive for society in its entirety. We're bringing that vision to the United States and all of North America for that matter, and putting more focus on developing the solutions here in addition to just servicing our customers with engineering. We will be driving new innovations for Ricardo globally with a focus on technologies that resonate for the needs of the North American market and beyond.
Quite impressive video there of Marcus, and let me introduce our friend, President of Transportation Design for Ricardo North America, Marques McCammon. How you doing, Marcus?
Very good, Drew. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, and really appreciate you giving us some time in your warp speed schedule. Talk a little bit about Ricardo North America, the organization, the parent company. How long has it been in business, and how you wound up getting there, and then the steps it took you to get there.
Yeah, not a problem. So, like the video said, Ricardo's been around for 105 years. The company was originally started with a challenge from the United Kingdom, from the government in London, to design tank engines that didn't emit smoke, so that they wouldn't be seen on the battlefield during World War I. From that first innovation challenge, Sir Harry Ricardo was the winner of the challenge, and he used that money to fund his business. Since then, Ricardo has been doing powertrain, chassis, vehicle design, innovation and integration continuously for 100 years. So we're headquartered in the UK. The offices in North America were stood up in the late 80s, and we have a footprint that basically covers all the automotive and transportation related businesses across the North American market. So we deal with passenger cars, motorcycles, boats, tractors, big trucks on the highway. I mean, we basically cover anything that's moving on the ground. And even in the past couple of years, we've been venturing into things that move in the air. So in terms of my role, I joined Ricardo in October of last year. I had known Ricardo for a long time. I actually joined the automotive industry approaching 22 and a half years ago. And I started off at Chrysler. I was an engineer and designer at Chrysler. Went from, in my tenure at Chrysler, I helped to start the performance division, SRT. I left Chrysler, went through a number of different executive roles, and then most recently, up until August of 2018, I ran a global software group that focused on automotive software as a subsidiary of Intel. And the guys at Ricardo had known me. We had done some partnerships together, and they came and said, "Hey, we've got the perfect role for you." I thought it was a good fit, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And no, that's terrific. Have you always been interested? I mean, for our teachers and the students in the audience there. I mean, from you were a little kid, were you the one building erector sets and Legolands, and man, this is something that you started enjoying a little bit later?
No, I've always been interested in engineering and design, and when I first started off, when I was younger, I thought that I wanted to be an astronaut, right? So that was in the 80s, 90s, we were seeing space shuttles going up into space, and I would sit there and watch the space shuttle launches and imagine that I could be that guy. So that was always a motivator for me. My grandfather was a mechanic in rural Virginia, of all places. So when I was young, we lived in New York City. So we would travel down to Virginia in the summers, and I would go with my grandfather to his garage, and he was the guy that tuned up all the police cars for the local county. So I would sit around playing with my toy cars, watching him wrench on the cars, and I got fascinated with the auto business. He was a Chrysler Golden Wrench mechanic, and honestly, that's the reason why I ended up going to Chrysler. I had offers from a number of the auto companies, and Chrysler was the one, and helped me to be close to my grandfather. He was pretty proud of it.
So would you say, I mean, he was your mentor, basically getting you into this field?
Yeah, I mean, he was largely responsible for my interest in mechanics and engineering and automotive. I mean, as I went, we moved from New York to Virginia right around middle school time. When I got to high school, I had a teacher. He was actually a physics and calculus teacher in our local high school, and he was a former naval architect and mechanical engineer. And he really turned me on to engineering. Before that, I thought science, I thought, physics. I really didn't know what the right spot for me was. I took all the metal shop classes, all the wood shop classes, but I didn't know how to aim my interest. And he's the one that kind of explained to me how engineering, science, math kind of come together to create things. So he set me on that path, and I am internally grateful to him for that.
Right, and the point being is that if we look at all of our careers, whether it's in engineering like yours or it's in media like mine and others, you look at that mentor, the person. Of course, our first mentors are our parents, of course, our first teachers, and our lifelong teachers, of course. But it's that inspiration that's out there that gets you pointed in that direction. And maybe you can just chat just a couple of minutes about how important that is for the students who are on our in the audience and the teachers that having that mentor is just so critical.
Yeah, I mean, mentorship is a big thing. It helped shape me, and I traded a number of mentors throughout my life and throughout my career, and I still maintain connection with them to this day, even folks who I saw as mentors when I was in high school. Because oftentimes when you face a decision or you have an idea in your mind, you're not sure how to make the idea kind of connect with reality. And having someone who has some life experiences that can at least give you a perspective or be a sounding board for you. It might not necessarily be that you pick their path or the direction that they gave you, but to have someone who gives you perspective to help you to think through it, I think is critical. So, I mean, for that, it was so important to me that I've tried to do that same thing in my career. I mean, even when I got out of high school and got into college, we started a mentorship program at my university, and I mentored high school students. When I graduated from college, we did the same thing, and I mentored college students. You know, since I moved here to California in 2008, for a while I worked with the Boys and Girls Club of Vista. I was the chairman of the board for that group for a while. Because at the end of the day, everybody needs somebody that you can lean on. That can help you to, like I said, see things from an angle that maybe you can't see for yourself.
Right. Hey, we had a question. Did you work with a Ralph Giles? Does that ring a bell?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, Ralph Giles.
Giles, excuse me.
Yeah, no problem. Ralph is now the head of design for FCA, so Fiat Chrysler. And Ralph and I were pretty good friends. I used to go and hang out over at his house, and back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when Ralph was club racing a minivan, right? So he wanted to prove to the market that the minivans we were making were road capable. So he outfitted one, put in new exhaust, new engine, and he would take it out to the track and run it around. Yeah. So Ralph and I have had a friendship for a very, very long time.
Yeah, we got a question from Dennis Johnson. Wants to know just how critical, we're going to bounce a little bit around here on some of the questions, but worth ethic is, and ethics in general, and what you folks do in your career, of course, and at Ricardo North America.
Yeah, so I'll start with ethics as a basic principle, then we'll go to work ethic. I mean, so first of all, ethics becomes the basis for how everyone knows you, right? So whether or not, I think for my career, I've been very fortunate is after my first job or so, I really haven't had to look for jobs, right? So I've gotten to know people in the industry. In general, I think I've earned the respect of people. And so when they need help, it's been such that, and I've been very fortunate, very blessed by this, is when people have needed help, they've reached out to me based on my name and my reputation. And then I've had the opportunity in many cases to pick the job that fit me or where I thought I was going to enjoy my work the best. And that I attribute that to ethics. People have always, I try to make it a point that people always know what I stand for. And when they take me to test, you will find that ethical value base holds true. And one of the best testaments I have to that is, today I can find people who worked for me 10, 15 years ago. And I say, hey, would you ever consider working for me? And most of them, the answer is yes. I can. As a matter of fact, I can't think of anyone who's told me no when I've reached back out to have some work for me. So that is paramount to me, both for myself and the people that I employ. Now, when you talk about work ethic, to me, work ethic determines your ability to have opportunity versus not. Okay, so I've always said that I didn't necessarily do anything special to get to the opportunities that I had. The only thing I did is when I saw an objective that I thought was both good for myself and the business that I was in, I pursued it relentlessly. And I demand the same thing from my employees. And the result is that the success or the monetary achievement, meaning, making money or getting recognized, it comes, right? So you never make those things the primary focus. Yeah, you shouldn't go out looking for glory, go out looking for money. Do the things that you're passionate about, that you think are going to make a difference, and pursue them relentlessly, and the rest comes. So that's been the philosophy that I've managed my career with, and it's been successful for me thus far. I mean, I've done things in my career who people who have been my senior and my mentor in the automotive industry have not been able to do in, you know, being in the industry for twice as long. So I just believe that it works.
Right. Obviously, that'll be one of the essentials to the skills you have. Before we get into some of the other things that you would say is just paramount for a person that, in your position as well, what car is that behind you?
So the car behind me is, that is our autonomous test and demonstration vehicle. So it's a Lincoln MKZ. That we have, it's a hybrid vehicle that we have reconfigured the controls and the software of, so that the car can drive completely autonomously. So one of the things that is happening in the automotive industry is, with every passing year, the volume and the importance of software in vehicle design is going up, and it's going up exponentially. So we have made it a point here in North America, given the fact that we have Silicon Valley here, we have the innovation in universities like MIT and Georgia Tech and University of Michigan that are really paving the way for some of this future innovation, that we're going to be the hub for Ricardo globally for how autonomy comes into contact with the automobile. So this is our test vehicle. We drive it around all over California collecting data. It's got thermal sensors, radar, LiDAR, also LiDAR, laser sensors, sonar. It's got cameras. We have a set of algorithms that our team has generated themselves, as well as sensors and algorithms that we test from other companies. Basically, what our focus is figuring out how to make autonomy safer and easier to adopt for all of the automotive industry, so that we can make vehicles safer for every consumer in the market.
You know, we were chatting, and thank you very much. We were chatting a little bit earlier about, you know, the skill sets that are so paramount. You mentioned about ethics and so forth. You're a communications guy as well. I know you didn't mention that, but was a spokesperson for a pretty well-known company, Aptera. We're probably going to show that vehicle somewhere down the road in this presentation. Talk about how just critical, absolutely critical communication is. And there's a shot of your Aptera as well. Maybe you can explain what that is too. Yeah,
so that's a great shot. We were actually in New York City. So Aptera was a startup company. It was actually the reason why I moved here to San Diego. It was the founder has actually restarted the company. It's a very novel vehicle design concept, focusing on lightweight and aerodynamics to make vehicles more efficient, so that we can consume less energy. And so I was the chief marketing officer for the company. So I was responsible for marketing, PR, sales, and market strategy. And we wanted to get the word out to the masses about what we could do. So we actually loaded 3 vehicles onto a semi, and we drove them across the country. We stopped in New York City, Washington, D.C. We went to Chicago, we went to Michigan, and we drove the cars around, meeting with media and meeting with different universities and schools and museums, you know, just sharing the idea and the vision. And what it really boiled down to is, like you said, Drew, is communication. The most fundamental thing that you can have as a professional is not just the brains and the insights to create an idea, but the ability to convey your idea to someone else so that they can understand it and connect with it, right? So there's a lot of very, very brilliant people in the world who struggle to see the success or to see the potential that they have, because they can't help other people to understand their vision. And it's been a very interesting road for me, I've learned the skill kind of on the fly, right? So I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've had, you know, going back to the point earlier, mentors who helped coach me and reset and give me some guidance. But I can't encourage enough to the young people that I mentor today, both inside of my company and outside, learning how to communicate your ideas, learning when to expound on them, learning when to be succinct, learning how to use simple language so that people can understand you. I don't think there's anything more critical, regardless of what aspect of business or industry that you choose to go into.
Yeah, and without question, and we all know in this absolutely convoluted world of communication, I mean, you can't turn around and there's a tweet going somewhere, or there's a God knows what, we haven't even thought of half the stuff that's going on. You've got to be on your game on this. You know, I know, Marcus, you can't have gone through the career you have without being laser beamed on how important collaboration is, and how, you know, you need to really work with people. Nothing wrong with failing. Matter of fact, some of the most successful people in the world fail first. We all, or many, many times. But
That's right.
Collaboration is something that is absolutely so paramount. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I'll give you one of my favorite stories to explain it. So I had my first boss at Chrysler, or my second boss at Chrysler, was the vice president of advanced creation. And he actually worked his way up from being the janitor, right? So which was mind blowing for me, because, you know, everybody thinks you go to engineering and you go to college and get these fancy degrees and then you're going to, you know, show up and be a success. Well, he worked as a janitor, went to night school, and basically climbed his way up to the highest levels of leadership in the company. So he gave me the shot to create the car that started the SRT brand name, right? It was a neon, and we redid the neon. It was the SRT4. We made it high performant and gave it a cool aesthetic and all this great stuff. But what he said to me, and I will never forget it, is he said, remember, Marcus, you can learn something from anybody, even the janitor. So it was kind of a pun because he used to be the janitor, right? But what it did for me in that project was he gave me, it was myself, a mechanic, and a designer. And the job was for me to go and build a car and a vehicle concept and a business case. I had never built a business case before. I had never been responsible for building a car in an auto company before. You know, how do you put together a business concept inside of an auto company? It's usually hundreds of people that do that. I had 3, and he kind of sent me off and let me go. And the reality for me was there was no way we could have pulled it off if I had tried to do it all by myself. And initially, that's what I thought I was going to do, right? I was going to draw up every idea and I was going to sketch it out, and it failed miserably. But when I got to the point where I started, I took on this tack. I would go and say, I'm young, over opinionated, and underexperienced. Can you please tell me what I don't know? Right? And that became my tagline. And I walked all the way around the company, meeting everybody from the engine test lab to the marketing executive, all the way up to the CEO. And I used the exact same statement. And the question I would ask them is, what gets you out of the bed in the morning? What keeps you motivated? And what is your view of this business? And that way, they taught me what I needed to know. And then they created the mechanism for me to collaborate with all these different departments and get it done. And the result was we started a whole new momentum inside of the Chrysler Corporation.
Right. Now we're looking at an interesting vehicle on the screen here. Explain what this is.
This is the Bugatti Chiron. So it is the next supercar behind the Veyron, which is known as the fastest production car in the world. So why is that relevant? Well, Ricardo actually designs, engineers, and manufactures the transmission for Bugatti, for the Veyron. We also design the engineer and manufacture the engine for all the McLarens, for Porsche GT3 cars, and military trucks, and so on and so forth. So it's a little known secret that Ricardo does a lot of engineering work and some production work for some of the most sought after and most celebrated vehicles in the world, both in production and racing, but we do it in the background. So we have a saying: if you've ever ridden in, driven in, or seen a vehicle that moves on the road, you've probably touched a Ricardo engineered product.
Yeah, well, that's quite an accomplishment. Now I don't know who the guy in the middle is here, but he looks like a young Marques McCammon. And again, we're chatting with Marques McCammon. He's the president of transportation design for Ricardo North America. I see the Celine Mustang to the left on the picture, but what's the car on the right?
Well, so the car on the right is the Celine S7, and for a while, the Celine S7 was the fastest production car in the world. It was designed and engineered by Celine Performance Vehicles. I actually succeeded the founder of Celine, the founder of Celine as the general manager of the automotive production vehicle business. So I ran the design, engineering, sales, marketing of all the Celine vehicles. We did about 3,000 vehicles a year. What we're most known for was the Celine Mustang. So basically Mustangs that are completely re-engineered to deliver anywhere between 300 and 600 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.5 to 4 seconds. And the yellow car, the S7, has been one of the most celebrated road cars ever to be produced in North America. I mean, we had one of them in the Iron Man movie, right? They've been in movies with Jim Carrey, and they've won at Le Mans, the most celebrated race series in the world. So yeah, it was probably one of the most exciting and fun jobs I've ever had.
Look, sounds terrific. Before we chat a little about the design challenge and open it up for anybody in the audience to do this, talk a little bit about how important, innovation and creativity is, especially from a student standpoint. A lot of students think that, there's some of our brightest are probably on this call right now. We talked a little bit about nothing wrong with failing and all that business, but keep trying, being innovative and creative is absolutely very critical to what you folks are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the world is defined by innovation, right? And the difficult thing for me when I first started is I struggled with feeling like I was smart enough, right? I thought that I had to have the answer. I thought that I had to be the guy that came up with the idea. And what I realized is that's actually not what innovation is about. You don't have to be the guy that invents the new thing in order to be an innovative leader. What you have to be able to do is take on challenges and be willing to fail and fail fast. So most people don't do well because they're afraid of failure. Truthfully, to be successful, that's the absolute worst concept that you can ever have. The brightest people in the world have failed, okay? And and they continue to fail, and they admit it. I mean, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. I remember when I was sitting on a board for an innovation challenge with Elon Musk, and we were talking about different concepts in the automotive industry, why automotive was ripe for a transformation, things that the industry had done very well and things that it failed at, and how we could take lessons from that and transfer them into a new generation of cars. And look at where he is today, right? So if you want to really change the world, you actually have to embrace failure. Learn from it, don't wallow in it. See how you can take one failure and let it move you to the next level of innovation. Do it again, fail fast, do it again, fail fast. That's how we grow. That's how we create new products. Just be smart about it.
No, you're absolutely right. Let's talk a little bit about the student design challenge that you are going to propose for our audience. You'll walk through the steps in all this business. It'll be due on June the 2nd, but we'll go through that. So talk about what you have in mind for everyone and what they need to send you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. We're at a time in the automotive industry where everything's changing. Like I said, we have more software in cars. Every generation of car, the transmissions have more speeds than they did before. We have more electric cars. We have hybrid cars, fuel cell. We're experimenting with cars that run on algae. And all of this is about defining what does the car look like for the future. So all of the students who are here, who are in high school now, we are trying to figure out what the car for you is going to be in the next generation. And we're trying to engineer it now. So we have some thoughts, and we've been working on some thoughts. So electrification is a big thing, right? Stopping the use of fossil fuels, or at least minimizing the use of fossil fuels. Autonomy is a big thing. Having cars that you can get in and tell it where you want to go, and the car can actually drive some portion of it for you. We look at shared use like Uber and Lyft. We consider that as a model. But now we've got a new challenge, right? So if we think about what does the future look like in a world after we've faced COVID-19, right? When we've had to social distance, and we've had to wear masks, and we've had to think about what services we've touched. What we really want to understand is, what do the young people think the future of the automotive industry, the future vehicle should be to serve them in a world where they're going to be comfortable. What kind of features should it have? What kind of technology should it have? Does COVID change the way that you think about driving? What I'd like to do is have the students prepare a video. Show me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts. And then for those who bring those thoughts back to us, I'm going to share them with my staff and all the engineers in our organization, and we're going to pick a winner. And for that winner, we'll give them a $250 Amazon gift card. We'll give them a Ricardo race jacket, and then we're going to feature their video on our social media feeds that are directly linked to the most senior executives in the automotive industry. I mean, like later today, I have a meeting with the #2 guy at Ford Motor Company. These are the people that I want to have see your ideas. So that's what our challenge is all about.
No, that's going to be great. And again, encourage our audience to send questions via chat, and our good friend Rob Atterbury will send them over to me as well. And what I want to do is turn it over to Rob now. We'll mute ourselves, Marcus, for a bit, and Rob's going to go through the logistics of how to submit for this design challenge.
Great. Thank you, Drew. Well, I just sent out a link. We are going to ask that you use Flipgrid, very simple tool. If you follow this link, there you will get to a screen that looks like this. Trusting that my link works. Excellent. You'll land on a screen that looks like this. It has the same question I just had on the screen. And if you just click the plus sign, you're welcome to practice a few times, script it out. Let me go back to my slide deck here. You have 1 minute. The video is set for 1 minute, and we want you to script it out, practice, and then record images, interview somebody, show your ideas. Maybe it's a trick car that you've seen in a magazine and you've got it there. Maybe it's an idea that you have. Maybe you want to just go out to the street and film some cars and talk through it. We ask that you not show yourselves, just so that we can share that. And when we do go to the final selection, we'll probably need to get some parent permissions for those of you that are students. But we would love to get your Flipgrid ideas. Pretty common tool. Maybe many students or teachers, you're using that already. The deadline for submission is June the 2nd at 12 Pacific Daylight Time. You can kind of figure that out for Central or East Coast time for those of you that are joining us from across the country. That'll give us a chance to select the top few and invite those to actually be shared on June the 4th when we come back together. And you'll get an invite for June the 4th where we'll announce that winner and be able to spend some time looking over sort of the top three and be able to do this. Audience, if you're teachers, feel free to send out the link that I'll send you after this meeting. Send it out to your students if you want to engage your students in this. Again, I'll turn it back to Drew and to Marcus to just once again, Marcus, maybe reiterate what you're offering to your top choice, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. So back to you, Drew and Marcus.
All right. Thanks a lot, Rob. I really appreciate that. That's a pretty exciting and daunting challenge there, Marcus. Is this the type of stuff you had to go through when you were in your job interviews?
Well, yeah. So it's interesting. When I go through my job interviews at this point, I go through psychological evaluations and I go through these large party groups and I have to take tests and so on and so forth, background checks. So it's a little easier for them than what I had to go through. But I wanted to give the team a challenge of something that's real and something that's topical. I mean, I sit with senior strategy executives from the auto companies on a fairly regular basis. I mean, I've probably met with 24 of them in the past 6 months. And these are the conversations that we have in the boardroom when it's just myself, president to a president or president to a CTO. So I figured that the challenge, while it's a little heady, it could be something that's actually meaningful to the industry and give the students a chance to feel like they really have a part in making a difference.
Right. Got some time for a few more questions here. What are some of the overarching goals of Ricardo North America? I'm sure you could spend another 15 Zooms on that, but maybe you can boil it down to a couple minutes.
Yeah, so the biggest, so what I say is that we want to provide a path to a better mobility future. So the reality is the way that we move is changing. We want that way that we move to be cleaner, to be more efficient, to be fun, and more performant, right? I still like high performance vehicles. I will always love them. We want it to be smarter such that we can, reduce traffic and reduce loss of life. So that's our overarching goal, and we're trying to attack it from multiple dimensions.
I think what's so important, especially for the students who are in the audience today, and of course their teachers as well, and parents and so forth, is what advice, would you give them? They're in high school, maybe some are in middle school right now. What pathway? You talked about your pathway as well, and we all know in this new world, there's many pathways to get to the end result. Okay, certainly no one's going to be discouraged in going to college. That's a great pathway. There's some others, but what do you encourage them to do, especially if they want to go into this engineering route?
I would say a couple of things. First and foremost, find something that you feel good about, right? So if you're waking up every day and you're doing a job because the only thing that you hope to get out of it is money, you've probably done yourself a disservice. If you do a job that you feel good about inside, you have fun with it, you enjoy it, then waking up every day is that much easier. Secondly, do a job that makes a difference to somebody else. Okay, so if you can take on an effort or focus on a task that's going to allow you to positively impact your neighbor, then again, you'll be able to wake up in the morning and feel good about it. If you keep those two things as the baseline, the rest of it is about career path planning. You want to be an engineer? Okay, take lots of math and science classes and find yourself a mentor who's had that experience. You want to be a technician? Okay, fine. Get involved in touching and interacting with vehicles and product as early as you can, and just keep feeding that. But I think the real advice I give people is find something that you can love doing and find something that makes a difference in the world.
Yeah, I think when you do that, it's also going to have you do a little bit of switching back and forth. Back in the day, because I'm about 200 years older than you, Marcus, you tended to have a career, and now it's like it's many, many careers, and we all know that, of course. And I think one of the things that is important, you and I were chatting about this before the Zoom today, is you don't have to be exclusively an engineer to work for a company like Ricardo North America. I had mentioned and what a business I've been in is the newspaper business. And during our heyday, actually only 1/6 of the newspaper were journalists. The rest were made up of accountants and photographers and salespeople and marketing and so forth. So if you love fast cars like you do, but you don't have that engineering background, talk about some of the other jobs you can get at Ricardo North America.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I started off as an engineer, but today I don't do a lot of engineering. I interact with engineers, but I do marketing and I do business and I do communications. I mean, inside of our organization, we have a communications team. We have a research team that looks at market studies and data. We have a finance and accounting team. We have a legal team. I mean, you can be associated with automotive and fast cars and high-tech cars and do just about anything that stimulates your heart, right? There's a spot in this industry for almost everybody.
Right. And again, what we were mentioning is that we're chatting with Marques McCammon. He is the president of transportation design for Ricardo North America. And whether you stay in the world of engineering with Ricardo, or you go to a different business, maybe you want to get into cell phones, or God knows what we're going to call them in 5 years, who knows what that's going to be. Keep yourself versatile, keep yourself active in that aspect. Marcus, I know I've been honored to interview you on some of our Cloudcast media radio shows, and I very appreciate your time on this. But one of the themes that comes back is, and it just absolutely is in your DNA, but it's also in Ricardo North America's, is how important is the company culture of diversity? So the bottom line is this: there is no one person that has the answer to all things, right? So the collective. The more people that you get with different ideas and different backgrounds and different perspectives, the better the idea that the organization will come out with at the top. So I think that I've been able to offer a lot to the industry because I've lived in the city, in urban areas. I've been
poor where we wrapped our Christmas presents in the funny papers, and I've moved myself to a higher status or position in society. That diversity, the ability to have different kinds of experiences from different places, is what makes me better, what makes an organization better, and what generates better product. There is no, the notion that there's one smart person that can do it all by themselves is just ridiculous. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite stories, Henry Ford. Somebody told me this story once. So many people said Henry Ford was not a smart man. So in his day, a lot of these thinkers came into Henry Ford's office and they said, you're not a smart guy. I don't know why you get so much attention. Henry Ford said, I'll tell you what, each one of you guys can ask me one question. You can ask me anything you want. I guarantee you, I will answer your question in 5 minutes. And then once I do, you guys will leave me alone. So each one of the guys asked Henry Ford a question. Henry picks up the phone. He calls in his top 6 scientists. They answer each one of the questions, and he kicked all the guys out of his office, right? So the point was, he didn't have to do it by himself. He surrounded himself with different people with different knowledge and different perspectives, and together as a collective, they made a company that was great.
One of the things I wanted to touch base on as well, and I know, again, this is something that is at the top of your list from a personal standpoint based on the career you afford for yourself, but also in the culture of Ricardo North America, and that's being a great environmental steward. Talk about that.
Yeah, so Ricardo, it has as a anchor point of our business. So at a corporate level, we say that Ricardo's purpose is to create a world fit for the future. So we have an environmental practice that looks at air quality, water quality. We have a rail practice that looks at how we master plan transportation using rail. My practice looks at how we look at cars, trucks, buses, tractors. But collectively, all of Ricardo is focused on creating a better environment. And we are very adamant that every aspect of our life should contribute to that. We don't even allow people to use plastic water bottles in our offices. It's that core to who we are as a business.
I think that's good. What you're seeing on the screen now, of course, is a poll. Like all you folks who are participate in this, let us know how we did and to see if you want more. I fear what's going to happen here, Marcus. You're going to get about 105 applications for be working for Marques McCammon, effective immediately in this aspect of it. But the poll is important for us to do, and while it's going on up there, we're hoping people can start filling that out. Once we get up to 60%, we'll end the polling on this. So appreciate that aspect. And while people are doing the poll, let me ask you another question, Marcus. If you were to go ahead and say to the teachers and of course the students that are in the audience here, we talk about this a lot. It's important to obviously have the skill sets and the ethics and all the skills you mentioned about, but networking is critical. You should really establish relationships, and even at a young age, definitely, and I don't think there's too young of an age, middle school and high school, get yourself involved, volunteer for something, help out people. Tell me how important networking is for you.
Well, it's critical. I mean, so I wouldn't be sitting here if I hadn't done networking, right? So, and when I first started in my career, I was afraid, right? I was afraid to go and reach out to people that I didn't know. At my core, I actually have a psychological profile that says I'm an introvert, right? But what I realized is that if I wanted to grow, if I wanted to learn something, more often than not, it was the people out there who knew the things that I wanted or that I wanted to learn, and I didn't know it myself. So I had to step out. And I had the COO of Chrysler told me, he said, Marcus, at the end of the day, regardless of what title I have, I still put my pants on one leg at a time, same as you do. So if you want to have a conversation, just reach out and ask. And so it was based on that feedback that he gave me. I started going around to the industry and just asking people for, can I have 15 minutes of your time? Can I have 30 minutes of your time? And I'd apologize. I said, I've never talked to a CEO before. Maybe I'm going to ask you a stupid question, but I just want to learn. And what I found is that more often than not, people are welcoming of that, right? Because so many of us are afraid to reach out and just ask questions. That's how you meet people. And then today, 20 some odd years later, those same people, I can reach out to them and ask them for help or ask them for advice or, ask them to help me connect with other people. It's so unbelievably powerful. I can't really put it into words.
I think that's some of the best advice that we could partake with our audience today on this. And I know you were mentioning this as well. You're never too old to learn. It's
Right.
just imperative that you try to ask as many questions as possible. There's no such thing as a bad question in this, and encouraging those students out there and the teachers who are already embracing this, of course, without any question in this. And don't feel, listen, here we are talking to Marques McCammon. He's the president of transportation design for a major international company. Listen, pick up the phone and call. Listen, I tell
Right.
people all the time, how am I going to get a hold of the president of SDG&E or whatever? I said, you'd be surprised how the folks had that help when they were going up the food chain, and it was someone who would listen to them, whether they were in high school or not. So I encourage them to do that as well on this. Marques, I can't thank you enough for your feedback. Any parting words of wisdom, which you've been doing for the last 45 minutes already?
My thing is to the students and to the teachers, just remind the students to try, right? So the old adage, nothing beats a failure but a try. But the reality is, so often we see the hurdle in front of us as daunting and scary or whatever, and we don't try. I've been guilty of that. There's been a lot of things that I wish that I would have done in my career, and I was afraid to try. And what I found is the times that I did try, sometimes I fell, but getting back up wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And more often than not, it was because I tried that I was able to make the next step. Maybe it wasn't the steps I thought I was going to get, but more often than not, it was the one that I needed. So just don't be afraid to try.
Exactly. Before we thank Marques and Rob and everyone, I do want to remind you there's another virtual career exploration coming up. It'll be tomorrow, May 27th at 10:30 with Teresa Young, President and CEO of Sign Biz. Marques McCammon, it's always a pleasure to see you and chat with you, my good friend. We'll look forward to taking a look at those design challenge results. They'll be turned in, I believe it was June 2nd, and then we'll be back on the Zoom on June the 4th. And want to give a huge shout out to Rob Atterbury, as always, the consummate professional from Connect Ed, and be remiss if we didn't give a high five to Jeff Green of VMA Communications for all the great work he has done as well. Marques, we will look forward to chat with you sooner than later.
All right, sir. Thank you.
All right, everyone out there, be safe and healthy. We'll look forward to talking to you sooner than later.